Hello students, today it's gonna be a long video lesson because we are going to go through of the important terms, definitions and other materials of the Baroque era. If you take a look on e-learning, you can see that it's 2 weeks. Okay, so you don't have to be afraid or panic that this is 1 week material. This is actually 2 weeks materials with lots of musical samples for make this topic more understandable. Notes. This is where Baroque era starts, page 9, and going through 10, 11, and 12. From the first opera, which was around 1600, until the death of Johann Sebastian Bach, which happened 1750. This is called Baroque era. The Baroque means highly decorated, highly ornamented. The word Baroque was borrowed from architecture to describe the elaborate music. The term Baroque derived from the Portuguese barroco, which means irregular pearl or stone. The Baroque period saw the beginning of the orchestra. The chamber orchestra is a small orchestra where each player has her own part to play. Do you remember when I was talking about the chamber choir? The chamber choir, when musicians are singing. The chamber orchestra, when musicians are playing on instruments. A chamber orchestra is a small orchestra. Chamber means room, by the way. Chamber means room. So it actually reflects the size of the orchestra. So chamber orchestra is a small orchestra where each player has his or her own part to play. Regarding by how many musicians are playing together, if it's 3, you call it trio. If it's 4, you call it quartet. If it's 5 musicians are playing together, you call it quintet. And up to about 10 players. You see in this picture, it's a kind of quartet. Why? Because 1, 2, 3, 4 musicians are playing together. Yeah, and actually it's called piano quartet because the piano is involved of this chamber music. People who supported musicians were called patrons. It's like today, employers. They were usually kings, queens, dukes, and wealthy business people. The Catholic Church also helped support musicians. Instruments: harpsichord, organ, violin, violoncello, and bass, flute, oboe, French horn, trumpet, and drums. The genres that we are going to discuss is opera, oratorio, instrumental suite, fugue, concerto, chamber music, and some other forms. Regarding the texture, We all know that in the Baroque era, the polyphonic texture came. I will have a little piano playing about it. And a very important compositional technique is the counterpoint that we are going to just a little bit discuss. Opera and oratory. The opera is a large-scale, fully staged dramatic theatrical work involving solo singers, chorus, and orchestra. What solo means? What is the difference between, let's say, solo, choir or chorus, and orchestra? The solo always means that alone, that something is played or sung alone, as a solo, as a soloist. Soloists are singing solos. Okay? That could be a player, that could be an instrumental player, it could be a singer. Solo is just a word, it means alone. Of course, chorus or choir, we already know that it's about singing together. Yes, lots of people singing together, right? The orchestra, lots of instrumental musicians are playing together. Opera is a secular music. What it means, secular? It means that non-religious music. Opera is a dramatic work combining text, which is called libretto, and musical score. It means that we have a composer and we have a person, a librettist, who writes the libretto. Libretto is an Italian word and it means small book. Okay, so mostly the person who writes the libretto and the person who composes the music for the opera is a different person, and mostly they are actually friends. Mostly they are working together, or the composer takes a topic, a theme from a book, a myth from the mythology, or other stories. But sometimes, by the way, the librettist and the composer is the same person. Now, this is opera. Oratorio. Well, oratorio is a large-scale sacred work involving solo singers, chorus, and orchestra. So, what is it? Large scale. Large scale. Involving solo singer, chorus, and orchestra. Involving solo singer, chorus, and orchestra. So, what is the difference between opera and oratorio? Let's see. Opera is for stage. It's a fully staged, dramatic, theatrical work. And mostly, the operas are performed in opera houses. The oratorio, there is no acting, there is no scenery, and there are no costumes, etc. And the another big difference is the oratorio is sacred work. So it's a religious work, while the opera is a non-religious work, or secular music. This is the first musical sample which introduces and explains the difference and the similarities of the oratorio and opera. Let's talk a little bit about Claudio Monteverdi. He was an Italian composer, string player, choir master, and priest. His work, often regarded as revolutionary, marked the transition from the Renaissance style of music to the Baroque period. Why he was famous? See, basso continuo or figured bass technique of the Baroque era. The job of the harpsichord in the orchestra was to copy the parts of the lower instruments and add chords and harmony to the music. It is called basso continuo or figured bass. The heritage of Renaissance polyphony. Enjoying fame in his lifetime, he was very famous. He wrote one of the earliest operas, which called L'Orfeo, which is still regularly performed. Two popular keyboard instruments of the day were the organ and harpsichord. The violin was the queen of instruments during this time. The piano had not yet been invented. Okay, there is a new word which is called absolute music. What is absolute music? Before the Baroque period, instrumental music was used mostly for singing and dancing. So it was a meaning. Why did they use it? They didn't use a music for its own sake, like to go and just enjoy to listen to music. Now, at the Baroque era, instrumental music was being written and played for its own sake, and it is called absolute music. The next that we are going to talk about is the suite. The suite is a set of dances, mostly named after dances from the Renaissance. Do you remember when we were talking about, let me scroll back, about this? Yes, the 5 categories of instrumental genres in the Renaissance. One was the dance music. Dances were commonly grouped in pairs. The favorite combination was the slow-fast pair. The Baroque era is using the style and the name of this type of popular dances. It was one of the most common forms used in instrumental music compositions. There are 2 types of suites. The first type is the orchestral suite, and the second type is the solo suite. What solo means? Solo means alone. So this is one musician playing. So the musical suite is a collection of pieces based on dance forms, grouped together into a set and composed at the same key. So what which actually connect these different pieces into collection or a set is that they are at the same key. They are composed at the same key. It's like an assortment of chocolates. Yeah? Each chocolate tastes different, even though the chocolates are all part of the same box. The suite is a French word and it means serious sequence or something like that. The Baroque suite has been developed in France and become popular over Europe. The suite was based around a core of 4 dances. Each 2 dances formed a balanced pair in its tempo and its mood. Slow, fast, slow, fast. So the allemande is slow and melancholic, while the courante is cheerful and fast dance. And the structure is the same with sarabande and jig. In Germany, the suite was known as a partita. So if you see a music which is called partita, it actually has the same meaning than suite. But it's not enough that it's only 4 dances. The partitas or the suites are much longer than only 4 dances. Aside from the dances mentioned above, other popular ones have been often added to the set, including the gavotte, bourrée, passacaglia, chaconne, minuet, and passe-speed. The suite usually starts with a musical piece called prelude, or in German language preludium, or Latin language preludium, or in French prelude, in Italian preludio, which serves as an introduction to this set of dances. So let's say how it builds up, how a suite builds up. It starts with the introduction, which called preludium, prelude, and they are having the same meaning. They just pronounced in different way. Depends on which country is the music from. Okay, and then these 4 dances and some additional dances. It depends on the composer that how many dances did he put to his composition. Okay. Dances were typically simple in their structure, with a binary A-B form being the most common. Form is a plan a composer has when he writes a song or any other music. So typically simple structure is called binary form when we have 2 themes which are totally different. So first come the A theme and then the B theme. We, violists, we are playing all the cello suites on our instrument because actually the tuning of the cello is 1 octave lower than the viola. So actually we can easily transcribe all the musics which has been written to cello originally to the viola. So what is this name? It's called transcription. When I have an original music for a kind of instrument, and I make a transcription for another instrument, let's say the cello suites are transcribed, or there is a transcription for viola of the cello suites by Johann Sebastian Bach. But there is also transcription for trumpet, for double bass, for flute and other instruments. Now, this is a very famous movement of the orchestra suite by Bach, and it's called Badineri. Badineri is a type of fast dance. Let's see this one. So this is the harpsichord part. Now the basso continuo, if you see that this is the bass, and these are chords. Normally, the basso continuo is only this. So the notes of the bass and numbers of the chords. Each chord has its different number. Let's see, I have another music to show you, which shows a better this is, yes. So this one. So we have a bass clef. We have the bass part of the music is the left hand, and with these numbers, the harpsichordist can adapt the chord immediately and can play actually together left hand and right hand immediately. So this is the Brandenburg Concerto number 6. Okay, let's go back to this, the Badineri. Let's listen to how is it going. Okay, now let's see how it sounds without the solo part and without the viola da gamba. So we mute the flute and we mute the viola da gamba, and we will just listen to the harpsichord. The bass is the same that the viola da gamba plays. Let's add the viola da gamba for the mixer. And the viola da gamba. Yes, and let's see how it sounds all together without the melody. Yeah, you have heard the theme with the left hand. The organist played that with his left hand, and then this is the theme. That's it, and then it will be repeated and go on during the whole piece in different registers and in different from different pitches. Okay, let's listen to just a little bit. See, it's again here, the right hand. To understand a little bit more what is counterpoint, I just want to show you a video about a two-part invention that Johann Sebastian Bach composed, two-part and three-part inventions. And it based on the counterpoint technique. So look at it. So generally, if the right hand is busy, then the left hand is less busy. And if the left hand is busy, then the right hand is less busy. And this whole thing going on during the whole piece. So if you take a look on this, with the longer points, you can see that there are less movement of the music, and with the more points, you can see that there are more movement in the music. So let's see what is going on here. So now the theme starts at the left hand. Look at it. Yeah, and the right hand continues the same theme. This invention is the first invention by Bach, two-part invention, and just goes on this theme. Yeah, if I play. Basically, the whole piece is built up on this one bar, as far as I think. And continues like that. Just a little bit more listening. Now the next genre is a cantata. I don't know that do you know this song or not, but actually it's quite famous, but probably you will know it. So let's see. At the Baroque era, the Baroque concertos, there were two types of concerto. The first is the concerto grosso, and the another one is the concerto solo. You see the concertino. The concertino is a flute. Unfortunately, it's not too much visible. Yeah, a flute, a violin, and a harpsichord. So actually, in this case, three instruments is the concertino, like the small group of soloists, and the ripieno is behind them. Now it's not anymore the basso continuo, which is only, left hand bass and right hand chords. Now the concerto is well suited to showing off the qualities of a fine harpsichord and the virtuosity of its player, but especially in the lengthy solo, which is called cadenza, to the first movement. So the cadenza is an important part of the concerto, of any concerto from this moment from Bach. It's normally at the end of the first movement when it's a solo part actually of the soloist, when there is no orchestral accompaniment in this music. Let's see, try to find this part. So you can see that there's still musicians are playing. And then they stop. And this is the solo part, which is called cadenza, which is the first cadenza of the music history, written for harpsichord. So just a little bit about what is the exact definition or the meaning of the concerto. The concerto is an Italian word, and it means accord or gathering, derives from the Latin verb concertare, which indicates a competition or battle. So actually, if you think about it like that, the soloist or the soloists are having a battle or a competition. They are competing with the orchestra musicians. So the concerto solo, when we have one musical instrument soloist and playing with an orchestra accompaniment. Since its publication, musicologists consider Vivaldi's Four Seasons to be among the boldest program music ever written during the Baroque period, I think. When composers write a musical narrative, what is program music? Okay, when composers write a musical narrative set to a line of text, a poem, or any other form of writing, which is typically published within the concert's program notes, that is said to be program music. It is believed that Antonio Vivaldi himself wrote the 12 individual sonnets, like poems, to go along with each movement of the Four Seasons. Now let's talk about the next one, which is Passacaglia or Chaconne. And in connection with these two, we need to talk about this word, which is called ostinato. Ostinato is a repeated, short, rhythmic or melodic idea. And over the whole piece, this melodic or rhythmic idea is repeated. In the case of Passacaglia and the case of Chopin, this idea is a melodic idea, especially a repeated harmonic progression, or very similarly at the Passacaglia as a repeated bass line, which is called the grand bass or grand. So both of these two genres are variation forms. So like you have a theme and its variations are coming after the introduction of the theme. Now, if you look at the music, this is the harmonic progression, right? Let's see the harmonic progression. Piano. Now, this harmonic progression goes on during the whole piece. Let's see here. Somehow, the right hand takes over the harmonic progression. Yes, what is next? Yeah, if you see this here, it's actually the same chord than this. If you see this, the next one, is the same chord progression than this. And so on. So during the whole piece, yes, the another thing, the variation form, this is the theme. This is the first variation. This is the second variation. You see the double lines. This is the third variation, and so on. Of course, it repeats each variation. And so on. You can watch this later. Now, just because of it's very interesting, and this is one of my favorite pieces. If you have time to listen to Handel, Halvors, and Passacaglia. Handel, Halvors, and Passacaglia is based on the Handel Passacaglia in G minor or in Sol minor, but Halvorsen made a transcription, a duo for violin and viola, and this is my favorite performance. If you have time, that would be nice if you watch it. Okay. canon is a piece of music in which two or more voices or instrumental parts sing or play the same music starting at different times. The round is a type of canon, but in a round each voice, when it finishes, can start at the beginning again so that the piece can go round and round.
Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping, Brother John? Brother John, morning bells are John, morning bells are John, morning bells are ringing, morning bells are ringing, ding ding dong, ding ding dong.
Now, with the thing that this is a canon, this is also a passacaglia, because if you have heard the cello, the bass part, repeated bass line is this. Again. Yeah, listen to again, the beginning. So it's a canon, but at the same time, it's also a passacaglia. So the grace notes and ornaments are about to dress up the music. In Baroque music, uses lots of ornamentations. There are just a couple of ornamentations, it's just a part of it. Let's say the trill, yes, how it signed and what is exactly at play. So let's say the trill is when you play an alternate note. Yes, the mordant when you play the above note of the note, or this one when you play the below note of the main note. And there is an appoggiatura and there is an acciacciatura. The appoggiatura is two equal notes, but it says that this is the main note, but generally you play it like this. Yes. The acciacciatura is really a very short note, a fast ornament mostly. And so on. And oops, and the turns. And so on, this kind of ornaments and grace notes were really popular during the Baroque era. And actually it was the freedom of the performer that when she or he using different grace notes and ornaments while she or he was performing a piece of music, a composition. And there is one more page of the notes. Now, just a little bit, because we were talking a lot about the different composers and compositions. So half of this I've already mentioned during this lecture. So there is just a little more Additional information. Of course, I will never ask that when Monteverdi was born and then did he die. But it's good if you know that Claudio Monteverdi was an Italian composer. Yes. At the Baroque era. And as we discussed, he invented the basso continuo or figured bass. Actually, we started to count the Baroque era from the first opera that he composed, which is L'Orfeo, yeah, which includes the Orfeo or L'Orfeo. Yes, I was talking a lot about Vivaldi, about the Four Seasons. It's good if you know that he was also an Italian Baroque composer, and his best known work is a series of violin concertos known as the Four Seasons. Handel, George Friedrich Handel, who we listened his oratorio, which called Messiah, and the Hallelujah Choir. From it, he was a German-born British Baroque composer. Most well-known amongst these four composers is Johann Sebastian Bach. I was talking a lot about him. Before, he was a German composer and musician of the Baroque period, and we also count the end of the Baroque era by this. And the next period will be the classical period. If you connect the term and the word with a musical experience. So that's why I'm trying to push you. I know it takes time, but these are all good music. And you are a musician, you are going to be a musician. So what else to do than listening to music during your study, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video lesson. I hope I gave you a good explanation about the different terms, verbs, and definitions. And have a good study, have a good music listening, and we'll see you next time. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.